It's the reason why Gwent got more rules when it was a standalone game, because trying to do everything they might have wanted to do out of the gate would have taken too much time. That didn't stop people from taking half their time playing Witcher as Gwent, but finally on the show we have a mechanically speaking, because Alex, I don't know if I mentioned it on the last episode. I did, but I had been playing Rage. Not,
Shadow
not
Legends.
Shadow Legends. Rage. I almost said Raid.
Yeah, because we were
Rage.
just talking about Raid off camera.
That's right. But Rage, the original, and what
Against the Machine?
Yes, you do
We're
Rage
just going to
Against
go
the
through
Machine.
every joke about this we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Against the Dying of the Light. Yeah, we do all of those things.
Red Like My Rage?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's all the ones I can get out of me.
Yeah. Wait till I go back and tell you about a game that was literally just called Gun. There was literally a game called Gun.
Isn't that Mario's Neutral Special in Smash?
No. No, it's not. No, thinking of something else. Anyway,
Yep.
Rage Shadow Legends is a game that came out from id, and it was a shooter. I mentioned it when we were talking about Decorative Door Syndrome last week, but there was something else I had forgotten about the game that got me to thinking. And it is sort of in the corner of the game. It's not really a big thing, but it was a card game. They actually had a card game you played in the game. And you could collect these cards that were characters from the game. And they had power and they had health. And you would pit your deck against somebody else. Or actually, I think it was just the one dude or two dudes.
Was it like Magic? Or like
No.
Hearthstone?
Probably closer to Hearthstone.
Did you ever play Hearthstone?
I think I tried, but I did not enjoy it, or I didn't really get into it. I'll tell you how the mechanics of this one work.
Sure.
Though. Okay.
Yeah, do that. Tell me how this digital card game works.
Okay, the digital
Inside
card
of Rage.
inside of Rage Shadow Legends. In Rage, basically they would give you these cards. They would have characters on them, and the idea is that some of them are more synergetic than others. If they have like the mutants, or if they have the different clans of the bandits or the raiders and stuff, or the townspeople. But anyway, neither here nor
I really
there.
missed an opportunity there to call them, instead of Raiders, Ragers.
Did they do that in the sequel? I want to say that was a thing. But anyway, they never miss an opportunity, Ed. Point is, the way this game works is that you have a certain number of cards, and you can construct your deck with points at the very beginning. There's like easy to hard, and there are more points that you can use to construct your deck. Everything has a point cost.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assume every card has a point value then.
Yes, exactly. And you can have 4 cards out at any given time. You flip one over at the very beginning of your turn. That becomes your primary card, and then one's past that. Your opponent does the same thing and can attack. If they're in melee range, the card directly opposite them. If they are a ranged attacker, they could technically attack other cards that are out in play. And then there are other things like the vehicles will essentially do aggro, so anything that can target it will. Every one of these cards has 2 basic valuations. They have a power and they have a health.
Okay.
Your power is basically the damage that you do, although I got the feeling like this is a little bit rock, paper, scissors. Some damage types work better on others, etc. And then your health does not come back like in Magic. It continually goes down as you get hit.
Okay.
And
So it's like a combination of Magic and Hearthstone.
sort of like that. We'll go with
If
that.
they had a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh card flipping action.
A little bit like that, yeah. It's very rudimentary, but it is stuck in there, and then you can use the in-game currency to buy some of the better cards from
Sure.
different vendors.
Booster packs. Get them.
Yeah. The thing about it is, though, is that for my money, I realized that it was kind of pointless to play with the system because all I really could do, at least in the starting area or the first part of the game, because I forgot there was a second part entirely. But then the first part of the game is that there's one person you can play this with, and what you get for, beating him is just some money. But, like, the number of times that you'd have to beat him to get back the money that you'd pay for all of the special cards takes up a whole lot of your game. like,
jeez.
like there's a lot. Like, you can pay 1,000 of the in-game currency for some of the better cards, but the most you can get in that first area, at least, on the hard, is like 125.
Oh, yeah.
So the synergy here doesn't really work. Now, it's possible when you get to the second area, which I haven't bothered to do right now. Maybe there's another person who plays this game that has higher stakes or whatever and other cards. But at no point, and I don't remember this originally when I played this, did the card game really come into play with the main game.
Right. So it's just kind of a side element.
It's a side hustle thing that you can do. And there are a lot of different kinds of mini games in a lot of games that we could talk about, but I really wanted to touch on the card games because they really do have to put in a lot of time to figure out all of the cards and the mechanics of this. Like, card games are very mechanically heavy to implement into a game that traditionally doesn't have card elements in it at all. So I keep thinking to myself, you have to be able to implement it in a way that makes sense for the world itself. And so Rage didn't necessarily do that very well, but there are a couple other examples of big ones. Pazaak from KOTOR, and of course Gwent from The Witcher. Which became like whole things into and of themselves, but also had some mechanical component to the main game storyline and characters as it went through.
Yeah, I know in the beginning of The Witcher, which I'd been playing recently, Gwent was like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to this guy and learn how to play Gwent. I was like, okay, I guess I can do that, I guess.
Yeah. And Gwent is a very addictive game. It's the reason why it became like its own standalone thing.
Says you, I didn't like Gwent.
You didn't like Gwent?
No.
What was your problem with it?
I don't like any of it.
None of it? You just don't like it at all?
I don't typically like card battlers.
Okay.
Like, yes, I will play Magic the Gathering with you, but that's not the same thing as like a computer card battler.
Fair enough.
That's a whole different thing. It's like my deck in Magic is like 60 cards.
Oh yeah. That's a big deck.
It's not like 20 cards.
Yeah.
And like 4 different cards, and then you don't have
tourney decks. You don't.
I don't really do 45 card decks.
No. But then again, I never really did small decks either. I like to have large decks that I could try pulling from. They're not fast.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't like that. Like, in Gwent, I think it was, I want to do all the things on my first turn and forget that I have, like, a second turn after that, like, the second round.
Right.
And so it's like, you have such a small deck to pull from, and then you have to make it last, like, 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't like that.
Hard. Yeah. And I don't really remember if they changed the mechanics around a little bit, because I did play Thronebreaker for a good portion. Well, Witcher Thronebreaker, which was like a top-down game, but the actual battles in it were based on Gwent. But they did change some of the rules. They expanded upon them a little bit, which I didn't necessarily think you needed, but I was like, no, you can just keep it simple. But I understand they needed to flesh it out more for the Gwent and for Thronebreaker, etc. But the thing that was useful about Gwent is that you would get cards a lot of times by actually doing quests they would be quest rewards, so they are
Right,
integrated
just
that
what
way.
I wanted for a game I don't want to play.
And then there were characters you could play Gwent with that would give you unique dialogue or give you favorable impressions upon those characters, or could move certain storylines forward in a different way. Unique dialogue, that kind of thing. And so, the mechanically speaking that I wanted to do today was mostly just about that. How you can have a card game actually interact with the main game itself.
Yeah, I think there's a few ways you can do that. Obviously, Gwent is your example. I haven't played enough where I have found someone I need to play Gwent with to unlock a different thing. But on the same note, or different note, it's not a card battler, but for instance, Valhalla, Assassin's Creed,
Mm,
you have your flighting. I don't know if you've played Valhalla.
not yet.
It's a word rhymes. It's like a
Oh,
kind of like a Norse rap battle.
great.
But no, they're interesting. It's using rhyme and rhythm.
Oh, okay.
So you go back and forth, but that interacts with the game because you actually like by doing those you increase your charisma,
Okay.
which has effects on other parts of the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think doing something where either maybe you have a notoriety level or a fame level that's interacted with your how good you are at this game
Mm-hmm.
for you could be interesting. Like
Yeah.
maybe if you're really good at this game, people know you as a renowned uh, card player or whatever card game it is.
Right.
Um, or you know those special dialogue options, different merchants or whatever, or discounts on cards or things like that. But that still only interacts with mostly just the card game itself.
I I might have remembered this from a game, but I can't remember which one. There was a if you had a case where you can get an audience with somebody that's usually not able to be interacted with, but they'll only talk to the best card players or the ones that have won in a tournament, because there's usually some kind of a tournament in those.
Or
I think in KOTOR there was like a Pazaak tournament that you could do, and you could
of course there
beat some
was.
of the best, and then you would get to talk to like the best of the best, and the only way you really interact with them, several of the characters, the only way you interact with them is if you're able to play Pazaak with them entirely.
Gotcha.
Um, which is fine. Pazaak was easy enough to kind of like pick up because you're just trying to hit a number basically. um,
Right.
yeah, but and you could play it and you could learn it on the ship and you could talk to your team members about it, and it was a social exercise for some of them. And I think you actually improved your relationship with, I want to say, Atten in the second one, when he would teach you Pazaak and you would deepen bonds with him. So
Sure.
so there are some social elements to it that you can implement. It can feed back, but that also determines how much you want it to be part of your game entirely.
Yeah.
I feel like in Rage, that was an absolute afterthought. That, hey, we're coming into a landscape, because this came out in, like, I want to say it was 2013, 2012, or something like
No
that.
idea. I don't remember.
But
I didn't play it.
no, 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 no. Now I have to actually look up what the date was. But anyway, it was coming into a landscape where I'm sure there was a lot of interest in having some kinds of mini games in your game.
Sure. And
Product.
I don't mind mini games in video games. I think the difference for me is that if you're gonna give me a mini game that neither has nothing to do with story or very little or is just set apart from it, or that breaks the pacing of the game
Mm-hmm.
to like, oh yes, I'm playing The Witcher, I'm investigating big monsters and all these like murders and other things,
Mm-hmm.
and then dealing with supernatural creatures, but oh yeah, let me just sit down to play a card game for an hour.
Yeah, and it can't be too deep in the weeds when you get there, which is why I think a lot of them end up being fairly simplistic. It's the reason why Gwent got more rules when it was a standalone game, because trying to do everything they might have wanted to do out of the gate would have taken too much time. That didn't stop people from taking half their time playing Witcher as Gwent, but Rage, Shadow Legends, came out in 2010.
Oh, see, you were wrong. It was not 2013.
It was earlier than that. But this was around the same time as Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Mass Effect 2, and God of War. And I'm starting to think to myself, wait, I think some of them did have mini games in them. I want to say, I think Mass Effect has something. Red Dead, I know, has some mini games in it. So they were probably trying to add something into the space that was unique before anything. Now, one card game, though, I just remembered from a game that did very much have a functional reason to be there was a real-world card game, and that's Blackjack in Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, because you could gamble for money.
You could gamble for money and eventually to get the suite keys for the individual casinos, which was very useful. And yeah, you could get a lot of money out of it, like serious amounts, especially if your luck skill. But that interacted with the main game because it also was tied to your luck skill or
Yeah.
your luck stat directly. So if you wanted to win at the casinos, you knew that you needed your luck to be 10, basically.
Makes sense to me.
But of course, I think Obsidian knew that people would do that because you will get cut off at a certain point from continuing to play blackjack. But that will not stop you from saying, "Oh my God, I could win like 10,000 caps if I go to all the casinos," or 15,000 caps, some ludicrous number if you get to all the casinos. And the Dead Money expansion. Oh, yes, the Dead Money expansion. But so that was functional just because it actually did get you money from it. And it was a game that people are familiar with. Oh, and then there was also Caravan, which was a game I could never understand.
Yeah, I never tried it.
I did, and I did not know why I was winning or losing. I could never figure out how that worked. But everybody wanted to play it with me, so I guess that wasn't a very successful one. Now here's the question that I want to pass along, because one thing that we usually do on Mechanically Speaking is we talk about these game mechanics and kind of lend them back to what they could be in a tabletop game. So here's the thing: in a Dungeons and Dragons, you can buy decks of playing cards, game sets, etc.
Sure.
But at no point have I ever seen people literally stop when they want to use them and actually play a card game.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Nathan. Let's say you take a set of dragon chess
Sure.
on your character as a game thing.
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to say to your GM, me in this case, to go, "Hey, I want to play a game of dragon chess with this person."
Mm-hmm.
It then becomes, all right, well, your character is skilled at this, but we don't have the rules for it, perhaps. Or maybe what we do is we whip out a chessboard and we play a game of chess. Now,
Right.
here's the thing with that. Your character is skilled at a level that you are not skilled at for chess.
Right.
And I am skilled at a level that the NPC you're playing against is not skilled at for
Right.
chess.
Right.
So it becomes well, now it's you and I actually just playing chess instead of D&D.
Right, because we're not doing the role-playing part of this anymore.
Right.
We're doing us instead.
We're doing actual chess.
We're doing actual chess, yeah.
So that is not a game of chance, I assume, if it's based off of real chess.
Yeah.
in games of chance, it's a little different than games of skill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to look up and see if dragon chess is actually a thing. Um, there is apparently dragon chess as a chess variant, which is a three-dimensional chess variant.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So there you go.
Nope.
Apparently in Dragon Magazine they had mentioned something about like what it is and how it works. So hey, yeah, I guess if you want to play that, but I don't really like playing 4D chess or anything like that. And I think most of the time when you see it, it's just a dragons inspired version
I'm
of
just gonna
chess.
I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna make the Mobius chess.
Oh, that would be pretty great. That would be pretty
Moby
great.
chess.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, there is actually a whole thing about Dragon Chess. This is kind of interesting, though, Alex. So, Dragon Chess, three-dimensional fantasy chess variant, which was created by Gary Gygax, from obviously Dungeons and Dragons fame, introduced in the 1985 issue of Dragon Magazine, and those three levels are supposed to represent air, land, and then the subterranean world for your upper, your middle, and your lower
Okay.
boards. So,
Sure.
yeah. And so then you have, so you have different levels like that, and then they have to interact. Oh, you can even get sets for it. That is just lovely.
Great.
That's terrific. And my
Anyways,
God, that looks like a whole lot of pieces. It's like a full chess set on each one of the boards.
yeah,
my God.
probably.
Yeah, that's a lot to look through. Anyway, so the other problem is from a time management standpoint, saying that we're gonna just spend the next hour playing the Dragon Chess. Instead of doing the Dungeons and Dragons, like Dungeons and Dragons can take a long time as it stands.
Yeah.
We probably don't need to then get into the whole thing where we now have to also worry about, playing this other game in the middle of playing that game.
Yeah, it would not be ideal.
So what you need to do if you're going to put a card game or any kind of game really into a tabletop game as like the little mini games is that those mini games have to be fast and they have to be simple.
Yeah, I think in a lot of things like games of luck, you could just do a dice roll
Sure.
and either have a table of outcomes, for instance,
Sure.
or even just whoever gets the higher roll wins.
Right. You could take any game that's like considered a micro game or anything like that that's usually pretty quick to play something that's like a 10-minute game. One that actually spurs to mind that actually would work really nicely for Dungeons and Dragons actually is Suro. Because Suro is real quick, very easy to understand, and does have everything to do with dragons. So you could just say that's your dragon chess, and whip out your Suro board for a second. Here's your little dragon piece. Here, put the pieces down and follow the line, and until one person is still on the board and everybody else has gone off the board. It's not going to take a very long time. At some point, maybe I'll bring Suro over to play with you because I think it's very easy to understand. But
good.
It's basically it's like a board where everybody gets a starting location with their little dragons, and then you put tiles on the open spaces of the board that have lines that go from one end to another, and the last person that is still on the board without getting pulled off the board is the winner, basically. The idea is to not have your flight path end up going off the board.
Gotcha.
And it's very quick. It probably takes a good 10 minutes or so to play a game. But that would actually work out really well. Anything like that, I could see. But yeah, very deeply involved games. You wouldn't want to play a Monopoly in the middle of the whole thing.
I mean, you could just stop. You wouldn't want to play Monopoly.
No. And if we were, it would be in like an RPG based on Wall Street. No one wants that either. That goes
Nope.
right there with the mall RPG.
No, I think that's better than Wall Street.
Yeah, it is. I think that the mall sounds great. If we're going to have a monolith to capitalism, I'd rather have the mall than Wall Street.
Exactly.
Let's do that. All right. Hey, folks out there, if you have an idea for a game that might lend itself well as a mini game in an RPG, let me know. I'm always on the lookout for quick, simple games that are easy to pick up and play that maybe you could implement into something larger or grander in scale.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then find out if winning that game gets you valuable information for your party. Because if not, why are you playing?